You are listening to The Examine Life with Bram Levinson. Just take a little bit of a listen. It'll give you information as to where I am. I was giggling because as soon as I started recording, a bug, I can't even make it up. Some flying bug flew straight to me, landed on my shirt, didn't seem menacing, so, giggle. And then the second I started talking about it, it took off. Interesting. Welcome back to the podcast. For the sake of recording purposes and for your sanity, I'm going to head indoors. It is lovely to be back with you. I apologize for the echo in here. It's a little bit echoey. Let's see if I can get this door closed without causing too much noise. There we go. I am very happy to be back with you. I have gotten past my first night of jet-lagged sleep here in Paros. Showed up yesterday. I do not sleep on planes, and so was up for about, 36 hours, and crashed hard last night when I did. And then today, of course, is magnificently hot. It is so hot, and the wind is coming from one direction. And if you are sheltered from that wind, it's so incredibly hot that at a certain point, and listen, this may just be my internal barometer readjusting, coming from, autumn in Canada to the blast of Grecian heat that's going on outside, but too much. So initially, I had left the place I'm staying at to go find somewhere outside to record. I was heading towards this beach that only locals go to, hoping that there wouldn't be anybody there, but there were people there. And so, as one does, I turned around, stopped off at the bakery, bought 2 pieces of, syrupy, drenched cake, and came back here. Listen, I think that was a mature decision to make. And I feel like, although there may be people who would, criticize the fact that I have come back to, my little villa where I'm staying when I'm here and I could be outside and making the most of it. The fact of the matter is, I'm choosing to live like a local right now, which means go inside. When it's this hot, go inside. I'll go outside later. I'll grab my snorkel. I'll go swimming when the sun isn't trying to, test me to see if I can literally get to my car rental and back without passing out. So, a little bit of sugar never hurt anybody, which I'm sure is actually inaccurate, but I'm just going to use it as a generalization nonetheless. And I'm inside. I'm doing it for you. I'm doing it for you. I don't want you to have to hear all of the background noise of either people at the beach or just wildlife here, So you're welcome. I'm really happy to be back recording. Just a reminder that I am back in Paros, and The first group of people who are coming on the yoga and meditation vacation arrive, I want to say, in about like 8 days, something like that, 8, 9 days. And that trip, that event is sold out. However, there is a second one for the first time ever in October 10th to 20th, when the weather here should be sunny and beautiful and temperatures in the mid to high 20s. It is a beautiful time to be here, to be honest, because tourists are pretty much gone. And so there's a much more peaceful experience to the island as opposed to coming in the dead of summer. Anyway, if you're interested, reach out to me. We've still got space. I wanted to talk today about this concept of attachment. Attachment. When I studied yoga, philosophy, scriptures, we were introduced to the concept of attachment and aversion in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. And the concept of attachment is defined literally. The sutra, or the thread of wisdom in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras that refers to attachment, basically says that attachment is that which follows identification with pleasurable experiences. So, attachment is that which follows identification with pleasurable experiences. Now, the teaching to this sutra, to this little bit of wisdom, basically tells us that we can replace the word that with the word craving. So attachment is craving that follows identification with pleasurable experiences. And what this means is, once we have an experience that really pleases us, we crave it. We crave to relive it. We crave to, have it occur again. And aversion, which is the next teaching in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, talks about avoidance. It basically says that aversion is attachment in reverse. It's the opposite. It is that which follows identification with negative or harmful experiences that take away our sense of safety or sense of comfort. And this concept of attachment is a really interesting one, because I remember teaching this teaching. I just went from a verb to a noun. Sorry, my brain, it's just, I don't know. I caught myself. I was observing myself mindfully. I was observing my words. I remember teaching this sutra to students in yoga teacher trainings and talking about attachment and giving experiences of how we attach to things, and basically explaining that attachment, as told through the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, is an obstacle towards nirvana, towards enlightenment, towards whatever word you want to use to describe finally finding what we want out of this experience of life. I remember teaching it and not being entirely comfortable with that teaching, because I then would have students asking questions like, okay, so does that mean that we're not supposed to attach to anything in life? We're not supposed to get attached or dependent or used to anything in life? And when we look at, the dissonance between the fact that the human brain seeks out stability in this experience of life, and that this experience of life is defined literally by the fact that it is transformation, that there's this constant state of transformation occurring all the time, how do you relegate one to the other? How do you say to somebody, don't get attached to anything or anyone, when their brain is actually programmed to attach, to seek out stability in a world where there isn't really much stability? Everything is changing all the time. So, I would, when asked, what am I supposed to do with this teaching, I would say to students, look, it's not necessarily helpful as far as a teaching, but maybe we could go back into the wisdom that my teacher, Joan Ravinsky, had taught all those years ago, which was that, we can make plans, we can find our people and find our habits and our things. We can find our ways and maybe just not take them so seriously, not get too attached to them occurring or to whatever outcome we think that attachment will present or provide. So I've always sort of had a thing with this teaching. I understand when we get too attached to something, when it becomes all about that thing and tunnel vision ensues, then yes, that can be an obstacle towards finding peace and contentment and fulfillment and all the things that we're looking for. Okay, I get that. When you pair that, or rather contrast that with psychology, the teachings of attachment theory and attachment styles. Attachment styles, for those of you who are not familiar with them, are simply the ways that we are with the people who we get attached to. And so attachment styles develop very early on in infancy and childhood and adolescence, and usually with a parent. There's an attachment style that we have with a parent. And that attachment style, the one that you have with a parent is not necessarily the one that you will have in romantic relationships and friendships later on in life. But there is some evidence that shows that the attachment style, how you are as a child with your attachment figure, your parent or your guardian or whoever you depend on, or rather whoever you're attached to, sometimes is evocative of that attachment style later in life, specifically in intimate relationships. I've heard it say that intimate relationships are as difficult as they are because ultimately they are the experience that is the most evocative of childhood. People get into relationships and all of a sudden all their stuff comes up, all their past issues come up. And that's because I believe it is, you're choosing an attachment figure. You're choosing this person who you will be attached to. And just the teaching of there being attachment styles and an attachment system, again, is conflicting with this teaching from the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, not to get attached. I remember studying with Richard Miller, who I did the IRES Level 1 training with years ago, 10 years ago, actually. And I remember he was talking to us during the training about how he wanted to go study with a teacher in India. I don't remember who it was. But basically, this teacher told him if Richard wanted to study with him, then he, Richard, would have to leave his wife, leave his family for good, not just like to go visit and do the training or to whatever the course was, but to actually leave them for good. And if he did that, then he could study with this teacher. And obviously, Richard did not do that. But I believe that this teacher was applying or trying to teach this teaching of, prove that you understand non-attachment and you can study with me. And listen, this is an assumption on my part, but nonetheless, I think it's probably accurate on some level. I take issue with that. I take so much issue with that. I mean, please, you want me to leave my family, or you want him to leave his family to come study with you? Number one, just there. And maybe that was the teaching. Maybe that was the wisdom that he wanted to impart to Richard. That there is no wisdom strong enough to pull us away from the people who we are closest to in life. Maybe that was it. However, if it wasn't it, please. Like, I know there's some bullshit in wellness, and I know there's some bullshit in, yoga and whatever, but that's ridiculous. I also know that there is a sect of Hinduism, Kashmir Shaivism, or Shaivism, depending on how you pronounce it. And there's a myth from Kashmir Shaivism that basically says that Shiva, who is responsible for the beginning and the ending of an age, had ended an age. And by age, I mean like a period of time. I forget what the number was. I'm not even going to try. I'm talking millions of years. Shiva had ended an age that is literally the age within which humans exist. He had ended an age and he was about to start a new one, but he calls in all the gods and the goddesses and he basically says to them, look, I'm considering beginning a new age. Tell me if, this is the right time. Give me your thoughts. Give me your opinions. And the gods and the goddesses basically say to him, yeah, the time is right, but listen, in the last age, humans needed you. As God, they needed you as, a kind and benevolent force, a force that people could depend on. And you weren't present. So in this age, you got to be present. If you're going to do it, be present. And Shiva says to them, not only will I be present, in any given social situation with humans, I will be the one with no head. Now the teaching, or the lesson in this myth, is that when you, who is listening to my words right now, when you are in any situation and you look around you, any social situation, you look around you, you can see the heads of everyone around you. You cannot see your own. Unless there's a mirror or some surface with a reflection, you can't see your own head. And so this teaching is basically telling us that Shiva exists within every single one of us. Shiva as God, contracted form of God, the energy that animates these bodies. And I'm just giving you the teaching. It is actually what I believe to be true. I'm not asking you to get on board. I don't care if you drink the Kool-Aid. There is no Kool-Aid to drink. I'm not here to necessarily convert anybody or anything to any one way of thinking. You are free to be you and think what you want. I'm just telling you what the moral is, what the lesson is from this myth, and what I believe to be true, which is that the energy in these bodies is what we are. We are not the body. You are not the body. We are the energy that animates the body. And through this teaching, we are taught that that energy is divine. It's a contracted form of God as Shiva. And the evidence, according to this myth, is go into any social situation and see if what Shiva said is true. See if you can see everybody else's head, but not yours. So with that said, that teaching also leads me to believe that if you want to know God, know people. Know thyself, obviously, as this energy. But if you are the one with no head in any situation, that means that everyone else, from their own perspective, is the one with no head. They can see your head, they can see everybody else's head, but they can't see their own. That means that they are animated by this contracted form of God. And so if you want to know God, know people. And so if you want to know people, how are we not supposed to get attached to people? I remember there's a lyric from the song Jump from Madonna, and I'm trying to remember it. Something about I can make it alone. And she sort of repeats it over and over and over, I can make it alone. And I remember first hearing it, and I've always really admired her boldness and her courage. And I do understand through reading interviews with her that she does believe that her dharma, her path on earth, has been clear, and she is committed to that dharma to a fault, to an extent at which she has lost opportunities, I guess, to have maybe, lasting, fulfilling relationships, or to do things, or to, go places. I think that she has really prioritized what she believes she is here to do for the rest of the world. But anyway, I digress. I don't think anybody's supposed to make it on their own. I do believe that it is the path of one, as I have alluded to in the past, Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. Yes, it is a path of one. But with that said, we need our people. And obviously we shouldn't expect those people to do the work for us, but I think we do need our people. And so this concept of attachment theory, which basically says not only should we not be trying to go out there and live by this world of internet and social media memes that basically tell us to stand up and be independent, not depend on anybody, and you can do it, and go on with your bad self. You know what I mean? Like, just if go onto the internet, go onto Instagram, just look up, just start like scrolling through wellness memes. You're going to see this in so many different iterations. And I'm sorry, but I call bullshit. I don't think that anybody is supposed to go out there and be able to just like, superhero it themselves. I understand that these memes are being read by people who have been fucked over, by people who have been betrayed, and who have been exposed to other people who have broken their trust. I get that. And yes, I appreciate the value of stand back up, keep going, you can do this, 100%. But I also believe that line of memeing, if that's even a thing, can be harmful, because it insinuates that, if you want to be psychologically and energetically and spiritually well, don't depend on anybody. You can do it on your own. And, when we talk about wellness and meditation and yoga and mindfulness, there's this concept of withdrawal, right? I think I talked about it in the last podcast episode. This concept of withdrawing the senses. Meditation is very often defined as being withdrawing your senses. And again, I call bullshit. When I teach meditation in some iterations, I encourage people to tune into their senses and to tune into what they hear and what they see and smell and taste and feel. Because I'm not interested in withdrawing even more. I think that the world right now, the way the world is operating according to all these old systems, is already causing and resulting in so much isolation and so much loneliness and so much unhappiness. We are, animals. Human beings are part of the animal kingdom. We thrive on collaboration, on cooperation. We need each other. And so, for these teachings to basically say, don't get attached to anything and you can do it on your own. And you shouldn't, if there's a part of you that really wishes that there was someone else, you need to stifle that part. I'm sorry, but fuck off. I've got a massive, massive issue with that. I don't think it's healthy. I don't know who or what that benefits, but it certainly doesn't benefit me. And the more I've studied attachment theory and attachment styles, the more I've realized that that's insane. To ask somebody what I've learned is everybody has an attachment style because everybody strives to find their person who they can attach to, and that person can attach to them, and ensuring that the profiles are what's the word? It's eluding me. Assuming that they're complementary, rather. Thank you for bearing with. Then that's going to result in an excellent relationship. I think everybody really should be able to let go of that modern day fallacy that you should be able to stand up on your own 2 feet and be the superhero and not give a shit about people and not need someone else to give a shit about you. Like, no, just no. So I suppose I'm talking about this because I don't know how many of you are trying to live your lives according to this understanding, especially if you are in a relationship in which the other person is very independent, if you are very independent and you're not sure if you even want a relationship, if you are single and you desperately want a relationship, but you also know that being single in the world has this whole other experience and you don't want to appear needy or you don't, whatever. There's so much shit that goes through our minds all the time that pulls us away really from remembering the teaching from the last episode of the podcast that I talked about, which is that there is a level of connection. There's a level of connection to which we are oblivious to in this existence. We are so focused on the literal and we're so focused on everything that pulls us away from each other, like these thoughts. If you want to be in a relationship and you don't want to appear too desperate because you don't want to turn someone off or you don't want to be that person. I mean, my God, just relax, enjoy your fucking life. Understand that there is connection to an extent that we don't even know about. Trust that. Go out there, be yourself. If you are insecure, if you are desperate to have somebody, be honest about it because your person is probably going to really appreciate that you want to love and be loved that much. They're going to appreciate the fact that, you're looking for your attachment figure because there are so many other people out there doing the same thing. And, if you've studied yoga, if you understand this concept of you should be withdrawing, you should be non-attaching, whatever. I mean, listen, I understand the teaching. I get it. I just think that taken literally, like many of the teachings in yoga and Hinduism, they're very austere, very harsh. Don't take it with a grain of salt. If you think that you should be going out there being able to make it on your own, good for you. I mean, that takes a lot of courage, a lot of chutzpah. But ultimately, understand that I don't think any one of us is supposed to get through this experience of life on our own. And I think that it's really important for us to get attached, to find that person, to get attached. And if you have been single for a long time and you're desperate for this to happen, but it hasn't happened, do not give up. Do whatever you have to do. Be as honest as you can. Don't try and play a game, because that may sort of reek of inauthenticity. And I guess that potentially, well, listen, I shouldn't say that. I mean, all I can say is, in my experience, when I meet someone and feel inauthenticity coming off of them, for me, that's a turnoff. And I don't mean in a relationship context. I mean relationship context and every other context. As I wrote in my first book, I've got a finely tuned bullshit meter, and it makes me uncomfortable. Inauthenticity makes me uncomfortable because ultimately it comes across as discomfort. And if I look at that through an IFS perspective or through an IFS lens, internal family systems, someone is operating from one of their parts, their cognitive parts. And when parts, express themselves through the person, that activates someone else's parts. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. All that to say, relax, be yourself, enjoy your fucking life. If you, want an attachment figure that you can really depend on, be honest about it. And, don't put up with bullshit from people. Like, keep going. Understand there are a lot of fish out there, a lot of fish in the sea, as I look out at the sea. Keep going. Don't stop. Don't, and if it doesn't look like it's going to happen, but like he or she or they are really nice to you in certain moment, whatever. If it isn't working for you, if it's resulting in you feeling anxious, as the old expression goes, ditch the bitch and make the switch. And by the way, that the term bitch is non-gendered. Okay, you can use that for anyone of any gender in any body. Ditch the bitch, make the switch. Meaning, don't have such an emotional attitude towards it. Understand there are so many people out there that could be for you. I don't really believe in the one. I believe that there are many ones. So go out there and find your person. Attach. Absolutely attach. With that said, do you attach, if I come back to that Hindu teaching, from that yoga teaching, do you attach to the point where you're completely dependent and enmeshed with them, and all of a sudden you lose yourself? No, absolutely not. As far as I understand it, relationships involve two people who have two experiences. They see life through different lenses, and they choose to share that life with the other person. You are two people in one relationship. You respect each other. You respect the relationship. But you don't lose yourself or allow the other person to lose themselves in it, because ultimately that just ends up, a whole clusterfuck. So I suppose the teaching can be helpful, but like seen through a certain filter of wisdom, right? All that to say that when you hear of these teachings and these memes and these little nuggets of, mindful wisdom, take them with a grain of salt. I remember when I was first taught this yoga teaching back in the beginning of my career, the beginning of my studies, really. I was so hungry to learn that I was just like, sure. Yep, absolutely. I'm 100% on board. And with time, with experience, teaching these teachings and sitting with them and, really considering them one by one, ultimately for me, the teaching was, there is no teaching that I am going to trust unequivocally until I experience it myself and know it to be 1,000 billion% true. And usually, when you hear me through this modality, through this avenue of podcasting, it's because I'm sharing the stuff that for me, I know is 100%, 100 billion% true. Doesn't mean I expect you to be on board, and it doesn't even necessarily mean I'm right. It just means that right now, at this moment in time, when I feel conveyed to share something that really has been resonating with me, I find it true. Doesn't mean it won't change. If you would have asked me, 15 years ago about this teaching, do you believe it to be true? I would have said, yeah, absolutely. Don't get too attached. Or rather, don't get attached, because it's an obstacle towards finding what you want. And today, it's like, yeah, maybe the opposite is true. Maybe getting attached is not the obstacle. Maybe getting attached is how you're going to find God. It's how you're going to find all the things that you want to find. It's the way I'm going to find what I'm looking for. And to a certain extent, what I found. Anyway, I was up last night with jet lag thinking about all this and thought, pull out the microphone, share it. So here you are, here we are. I'm going to leave it at that. I hope that there was stuff here that resonated with you. If you have any thoughts on the matter, and listen, I can barely remember what I've said over the past, I don't know how many minutes I've been recording, but like, if there's something that you take issue with, reach out. Social media me. If you know me personally, contact me in other ways, but let me know what you think. All right, everybody, give it all a really good think. I am signing off from Paros. I'm looking forward to more inspiration landing in the middle of the night. And when that happens, you'll hear about it. Take care, everybody. This has been The Examine Life with Bram Levinson.